You're joining the Loudr Lawyer Network, the podcast where we sit down with the law firm owners, attorneys, and visionaries that are making the most noise in the legal landscape nationwide to find out the secrets to their success. Other podcasts think they're getting loud, but we're getting louder. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network, where we help attorneys scale to $1 million months through powerful strategies and connections. And this morning, I'm here to welcome Aaron Feuer. Aaron, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Thanks for having me, man. I'm pumped to be here and pumped to be joining you today.
Nice. So let's jump right into it. I want to take me on your journey. Take me back to before you ever decided to go to law school. Take me back to the younger Aaron.
Sure. The younger Aaron's a lot different than the current Aaron, but I grew up with a great family that always pushed me to be successful and to work hard with whatever I did. And I grew up playing a lot of sports, which I really think shaped me and my future and my current self over time. So throughout my younger years, I was very involved in athletics. My family pushed me in regards to education, and I always sort of, even from a young age, always wanted to be a lawyer, although that path became much more clear once I got to high school and college and things of that nature. But certainly my family and my sports background has really shaped who I am and has shaped my career up to this point forward.
Okay, so you played at Dartmouth, right?
I did. So I played one season there as a freshman. I was recruited to go there. I was recruited by a few other schools. Let's just say it just wasn't my favorite place there. And overall, I'm a Florida guy, and I missed Florida, and I wanted to come back. And you know what some people said to me, because obviously Dartmouth is a great school and it opens a lot of doors. To me, it was always, I don't need this school to open a lot of doors because I'll open them myself. And I always was confident in myself. And so I decided to leave and attended the University of Florida for my undergrad, and then Florida State University for my law school.
Oh, very nice. So you didn't, at Dartmouth, did you happen to know a guy by the name of Brian White?
No, was he there in 2005?
I'm not sure when Brian was there, but he's the son of the late JoJo White, the Celtic that played. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, no, I don't think I was there when Brian was there, but I have heard of him.
Yeah. Nah, awesome. So you get to the University of Florida. Did you get involved in any type of sports there?
Yes.
Sports college.
My plan was to continue playing football. I don't know if I would have ever been a starter, but I certainly think I could have made my way onto special teams. And it was actually during the Tebow years when we won 2 championships. Long story short, I tore my ACL pretty shortly after transferring there. And that was kind of a sign to me of like, hey, you're never going to be a pro athlete. You're never going to make it in the NFL. You're not going to be a big football star. Enjoy college, keep your brain, and move forward. And so I think it was kind of a sign to take a different path, I guess you could say.
So growing, it's kind of interesting because I have a son that you're echoing him. He's 23 now, and athletes all his life, high school quarterback, the whole nine. When you decide to make that decision, what is that like? Like, because you up until then your identity was like athlete. You had that passion to pursue that, and then suddenly just to have that at that young age to be able to have that click in. What was that process like?
So after leaving Dartmouth, I'll just be honest, I lost my love a little bit for football. Mainly, I didn't love the offense that they ran and sort of how I was used and things of that nature. And so
what position were you?
So I was a fullback.
We lost audio. Can you hear me? I can't hear you though. That's okay. These things happen. We're in the live, so.
Okay. Are we back?
We're back, man.
I'm
That's awesome.
I'm so sorry. A technical difficulty on the big show. I'm sorry.
Hey, that happens, man. That happens. We're still going. So fill me in on that part.
Hey, Raje, that's how the people know this is real, and that's how they know I'm real.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I was saying was I was a fullback, and in high school I was more of like a featured type back, and then when I got to Dartmouth, it was more of like a power blocking scheme, and it took me a little longer to adapt. But so when I transferred to the University of Florida, I wasn't expecting to play or to walk on to football right away. And eventually, though, my love for football and missing the grind and the competitive nature of it and all of that grew and grew and grew until finally I was like, no, I'm going to walk on. I'm going to get back into it. And then I tore my ACL, and it was like, that was the sign. So that was the end of that.
So your University of Florida, great sports school during the Tim Tebow days, which was a great time, man. I mean, all eyes of the football world and college football were on you guys' school. I mean, it was such a wonderful time. I remember that period.
No, it was incredibly exciting. I was obviously a huge UF and huge Tim Tebow fan. I loved my time there, but I just want to be clear how I explained to everybody, because I went to UF for undergrad and FSU for law school, is UF was my first love, but FSU was my soulmate. And I had an amazing time at both schools, and I hold both in very high regard because of that.
Very nice. You're born in Florida, right?
Yes, born and raised in North Palm Beach, Florida, which is in the Palm Beach Gardens area, Palm Beach County, all the way east.
Right. And I assume you're a big Dolphins and
huge. It's been a brute. Yeah, the Heat have treated me much nicer, but Dolphins life has been rough from my teenage years until now. We haven't won a playoff game, but I have a 2.5-year-old son, so I'm hoping that I knocked out the bad portion of the Dolphins years, and he can grow up with huge success of our Fins.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing, man. That's a beautiful thing. So you go to school. What were you majoring in?
So I was a finance major. I've always been like a math and numbers type guy, which is pretty uncommon for lawyers. But it's given me a little, it's given me a little advantage because I can crunch numbers very quickly, and most attorneys can't. And so that has been helpful to an extent, but it's definitely not the typical path for most attorneys.
No. So you're there, like you said, when you were younger, you decided you knew you wanted to be an attorney. What led you to go into? You were one of the you're one of the top certified trial lawyers. Under 1%, only 1% in Florida, and I found that interesting. Tell me about how all that works. Because you worked with you were assistant to the DA, right?
Yeah. So what you're referring to is I'm board certified in civil trial law. It's a distinction held by less than 1% of attorneys here in Florida. Less than 3% of attorneys are board certified in any field at all. So it's one of the biggest distinguishing factors that I have as an attorney. It automatically signals to defense counsel, to other attorneys, to adjusters, to insurance companies that I'm quite experienced, because in the law field, the bar is very high to get board certified. In my field, board certified in civil trial law, you have to complete 15 jury trials, and you have to do at least 2 parts of the trial, meaning you have to do at least a direct examination and or a cross-examination and or jury selection and or an opening statement and or a closing statement. So essentially what that signals to people is that, hey, he's tried at least 15 cases, he's experienced, and he will go to trial, which is a very important factor in my field, which is personal injury. But like you were saying, I started out as an assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, Florida. And in less than 5 years, I worked my way up to the homicide and gang violence division. And I was able to prosecute homicides and very serious violent crimes. And it was an incredible experience. And it's where I got my training ground to be a trial attorney, because I tried about 50 cases as a state attorney. And there's no better experience than being a state attorney or public defender and getting that groundwork and that education in trial constantly.
Right. And you were the lead you were the lead in most of those cases, the lead attorney, right?
I believe, yeah. So I believe I had about, of the 47 to 50 trials, I think I had about 35 or 36, somewhere in the 30 to 36 area. I was first chair. I was primary counsel.
With 100% conviction rate.
In homicides. Yes. Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. If anyone has 100% win rate or 100% conviction rate over their entire career, they're not trying tough enough cases. Now, as attorneys get older, they get to pick their cases a lot more, and they typically pick the best one. And so if it's, hey, I haven't lost the case in 10 or 15 years, that's different. But if your attorney says he's never lost the case, he's never tried a tough enough one yet.
So you becoming an attorney and going into where you got hired in assistant state DA, right?
Yes.
What led you to the decision in going into that aspect of law? Like, take me through the journey that walked me through till you decided to come out on your own. Because to go from where you were having that success to going to a plaintiff aspect to personal injury, where was that shift? There's a lot of things happening there.
Sure. So I always knew I wanted to be a state attorney because I wanted to get that trial experience, that trial education, I'll call it. So when I was even applying to law school, it was always in my head that I wanted to be a state attorney because I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And that's kind of what was always drilled into my head. That was the best path to get there. So I would have been a state attorney for a long, long time, but unfortunately, it's a government position and they don't pay you enough. And I had student loans and other things like that. And for a lot of people who are attorneys and go into this profession, I wanted to make money just like everyone else. And at the same time, I still wanted to help people. So actually the most natural transition from assistant state attorney is to a plaintiff's counsel in the personal injury field, because as a state attorney, while I technically represented the state, in a way I was representing victims of violence. I was helping them achieve justice for what occurred to them. As a personal injury attorney, I help people who are injured be compensated for what was taken from them in terms of their health. So it goes from, again, I represented the state, but sort of representing individuals who are victims of violence to representing individuals who are now victims of negligence that ultimately affects their health.
Right, and that's a sort of violence that's not brought on by themselves.
Right.
So you have to set up the same. Have you had to take any of those cases from personal injury? Have you had to go to trial on any of those?
In the personal injury field? In
the personal injury field. And
yes, of course. So to be board certified in civil trial law, it doesn't count any of my criminal cases. So I could have been board certified in criminal law, but since I was leaving that field, it didn't make a ton of sense to do that. I would end up losing my certification after 5 years anyways. But to be board certified in civil trial, I had to have tried at least 15 cases, which I think I've tried like a little over 20 in the civil field. So combined, I've tried, I think, just under about 70 trials.
And these are the trials that have jury decisions at the end of them.
All of these were jury trials, every single one.
Tell me about the first. I want to do a comparison here, if you will.
Sure.
The first jury trial in criminal versus your first criminal trial in plaintiff's personal injury.
Sure. So the first jury trial in criminal was a little more intimidating, even because it was my first trial ever. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do. So that was different for me. It was a misdemeanor domestic violence case. And like all of my trials, it's a great experience. But because it was my first one, yeah, sure, it's intimidating. The stakes in a way were a little lower because it was a misdemeanor compared to some other more violent crimes, you can say, even though domestic violence cases are extremely serious, and I took my job very seriously. To then my first civil case as a first chair was actually in federal court on a very, very, very difficult slip and fall. And let's just say I learned a lot of good lessons in that trial. in the civil world, because money is on the line and people are being paid more, especially like the defense counsel, they do a very, very, very significant amount of work into the cases. And it involves a even bigger layer of work than certain criminal cases. Now, criminal cases such as a homicide involve a lot of work. There's a lot of witnesses, there's a lot of evidence, there's a lot of things to do. Some of the misdemeanor crimes, though, involve a significantly less amount of work. There may only be 1 or 2 witnesses. It may just be the officer. It may be few documents. It may be a 1 or 2 day trial. In the civil world, in almost any case, there's, we'll say, 5 to 10 witnesses, and there's way more documents and way more reading and way more preparation you have to do. And so in terms of documents and preparation from the civil side, it's a lot more intensive. But like any trial, I learned a lot of valuable experiences from that, things I still do to this day and things I'll never do again and things I'll watch out for in the future as well. So every trial is a learning opportunity, win or loss. It's a great experience.
Man, that's solid right there. That's a sound bite right there. Sound bite right there. Because I was going to go to, what was the hardest verdict in both fields that you had to accept and take?
Yeah, I think the hardest verdict for me was a loss I took in criminal court. I'll give you, it's an interesting story. I'll give you the very brief version. There was a defendant who was charged with 3 counts of attempted murder for basically shooting into a household in a drive-by shooting where 3 family members were inside. He had a separate case where he was charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. PFCF is short for that charge. And long story short, we were about to try the attempted murder case, and the main victim, the main witness who could identify him, refused to come to court. And so I asked my judge for a continuance, and he was not very pleased. He wanted to push forward and keep the case moving and things like that. And he basically said, hey, can we at least try the PFCF charge, which was technically a separate case, but there were some shared witnesses, mainly just officers. And me being a little bit of a younger prosecutor and a little overconfident about it, said, sure, why not? So this gun that this defendant was charged with possessing was the gun that he used in the shooting. He was arrested a couple weeks later with it, and it was in his wheelchair. This defendant did drive-by shootings because he was actually paralyzed from a prior shooting, and his girlfriend would drive him around and he'd shoot out the window.
Wow.
So I tried the possession of a firearm by a convicted felon charge. He actually testified. He's in his early 20s. He came off super sympathetic and basically was like, hey, I don't feel anything in my legs. I didn't know it was there. Someone else put it there. Long story short, the jury walked him, and I couldn't believe it. I was sick to my stomach. I don't know how they walked in with the evidence we had, with it being found on him, whatever. I then learned that gun was now excluded from my upcoming attempted murder trial, which was one of the biggest pieces of evidence in that case. And I was heartbroken, and I was disappointed, and I felt terrible about it. But what it led to essentially was what I apply in every case, in any case. I was like, there's no way I'm letting this guy get away with it. I'm going to figure out what we can do to make sure he gets convicted in the next trial. So long story short, I had my paralegal pull every incident this guy had ever been connected to. He had been connected to like 10 or 12 other shootings. They could never nail down this guy. He was part of a gang. He was like one of the most sought after criminals that just, you could never get anything to stick to him. And in Florida, they have something called the Williams rule. So normally you cannot bring in prior crimes to prove that someone now did this crime. But there are limited circumstances for that. And I haven't been in criminal a long time, so I can't remember every single one. But for example, method of operation is one of the ways you can bring in prior crimes. So I'll give you an example that everyone will understand. In Home Alone, you had the sticky bandits who, when they burglarized the house, they turned on the water in the basement and they let the water run before to flood the houses. Well, because that was their MO, that was their method of operation. If I wanted to prove that they burglarized Kevin McAllister's house, I can now bring in these 7 prior burglaries where they also flooded the basements to prove that they also did the Kevin McAllister burglary because, they tried to flood his basement or whatever. So in this case, I found similarities. I found that his girlfriend was implicated in a bunch of them and drove them around. I found that the same car was cited in a bunch of these. I found that like other weapons used in his crimes were like all found in like a radius around him, basically. The second thing I did was I had the girlfriend and a co-conspirator arrested immediately. And I couldn't understand, because this was a case I inherited, why they weren't arrested from the start. And I flipped both of them to testifying witnesses. And so ultimately we had this big hearing. It's called a Williams Rule hearing, where I had to present all this evidence to the judge and basically be like, hey, judge, I want you to let in these 4 prior crimes to prove that he did this other crime in this new trial. And ultimately the judge ruled in my favor. And so now I was going to be able to present evidence to the jury that he had done this 4 prior times. And at that point, I had enough that I was going to be able to convict him. Ultimately, we entered a plea deal where he agreed to 20 years in prison, serving a minimum mandatory sentence, which meant he had to serve every single day. And so it felt like a huge win, especially after I felt like I took a huge loss. And it's honestly one of the cases I am most proud of by far, because it taught me valuable lessons. And at the same time, I didn't give up, and I found a way to find success in my case. And I've done that in numerous cases since then, on a bigger scale, on a smaller scale. But that's one that really sticks with me and that I'm truly proud of.
Man, that's a beautiful story. What that shows is perseverance at its finest. I mean, and being a great storyteller, because in presenting all that evidence, you had to be able to paint a picture, tell a story that the jury would be able to follow and see, you know, because he took the sympathetic approach, which won and got that previous text, right? Got it tossed out, and you were able to paint a picture. That's a beautiful thing, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's, in what I do now, it's so important to be a storyteller, because number one, you have to keep a jury's attention, which is already difficult, especially in this day and age with social media and our phones.
Absolutely.
And all of that. And you also have to get them to relate to you, because as lawyers, we use legal jargon and big words and fancy terms and medical terms in the personal injury field. And you have to get them to be able to follow along and follow your story and keep their attention. So I think the best trial attorneys, and the ones I look up to as well, are also the best storytellers.
No, absolutely. With that being said, what's one habit you have before every trial that no one in your office knows about, that nobody knows about?
Interesting. So before any trial, I listen to pump up music just like I would for a football game. I listen to, look, man, I'm a millennial. I listen to 2000s hip hop.
I knew you were going to say that, man. Go ahead.
Nelly, DMX, Juvenile, the Hot Boys, like all of it, man. Same stuff I listen to pump me up for football is the same stuff I listen to pump me up for trial. I get kind of the same excited feeling. There's a lot of similarities there. So I would say that I sit in my car and I let it rip on the drive there.
That's nice. I knew you were going to say that. I had to ask that. The other thing I was going to ask you was, here it is right here. Where is it? I was going to ask you, what is the difference between, where is it? At what point did you realize you wanted to help victims instead of prosecuting criminals? Like, where did that change? I know you talked about the money aspect of stuff, but being the superstar that you were already showing yourself in where you were going, that curve would have just continued to rise. Just like a doctor starting out in being infancy in their particular field, they eventually grow, promotions and things of that nature happen. What Tell me about those moments.
Yeah, sure. So I actually, I wanted to be a United States attorney. And I think if I ever would have gotten hired somewhere, that I'd still probably be a United States attorney to this day. Back when I was applying, which was about in 2014, 2015, give or take, that position was considered very, very prestigious and very difficult to get. So for just one opening, they would get 500 applications, basically. And so just to get an interview and make it, we'll say, to the top 10 was extremely difficult as is. I applied a number of places and I actually got one interview with the Las Vegas office. And I would have gone if I got hired. They let me know that there was one or two people in front of me that I guess they liked more and had a little more experience. And so it wasn't meant to be. The position's changed now a little bit because there's been a big exodus from the Department of Justice. So it's not still a very prestigious position, but it's a little different now. But ultimately, I wanted to come back to South Florida because I was in Jacksonville at the time. And I knew I wanted to transition the civil sector because sort of what's told to you about prosecutors is that if you stay there, we'll say between 4 and 7 years is the mark you have to leave. Because if you stay about 7 years, the studies show that you end up being like a lifer, or that you end up being there a significant time. So it was right in that area of time I was there. I'd been there about 4.5 years, that I basically had a close friend be like, hey, we have a position open in our Miami office, come down, apply, interview, all of that. And the rest is history.
Beautiful. So you went from working there to coming to working for another firm. What led you to see that, hey, I'm Aaron, I can go out and do this on my own? I know that you have all the confidence and everything that's there. What led you to open up the Aaron Feuer firm?
Yeah, so I always knew that I eventually wanted to open my own firm. After I transitioned to the civil sector and left the state attorney's office, I knew my path was going to be to open my own firm. And that's something that was really drilled into me by my dad. My dad was an optometrist, but he had his own business and his own practice for 25 plus years. And he always basically preached of, hey, don't work for someone else, work for yourself. That's where you'll have the most success and you'll be great at it. So once I came down here, I worked for one personal injury law firm, and I was actually going to go out on my own after leaving them. But long story short, I ended up joining another firm because I wanted to learn another system. I wanted to learn and get more trial experience. I wanted to become board certified. I then wanted to take both those firm systems essentially and what I learned there and that trial experience and create my own. And that's exactly what I did.
And you're successful at it. What's something opposing counsel constantly underestimates about you when you're in these settings, when you're in trial settings? What is something that they constantly underestimate about Aaron Feuer?
Yeah, so I have a few more gray hairs now, but when I had a little less, in the lawyer world, younger lawyers are kind of looked down upon in terms of like their credibility and their experience. Like no matter how many cases they tried, no matter what their experience, older attorneys look at you and they're like, oh, look at this kid. He's young. He doesn't know what he's doing. And so especially in my first, we'll say, 3 to 5 years in the civil sector, even though I was an 8 to 10 year attorney, still judges, opposing counsel automatically would sort of treat me a little differently, as they do all quote unquote younger attorneys. But what that did was they would typically underestimate me and they would have lower expectations. And so when I would come into trial and I would come into court and I was well-spoken and articulate and I knew the law and I was a strong advocate for my client, it typically would leave a very strong impression on them. So it's kind of like I had that bar set low for me, knowing I was going to jump very high over it. And I do believe I got and gained a lot of credibility and a lot of respect because of that. So now that people see that I'm board certified, it's a little different. I have that credibility now. But that was something growing up in the legal profession that a lot of younger attorneys deal with. That was definitely difficult for me at times, the way I'd get treated. And it's thankfully something I don't deal with now as frequently.
Mm. You said you had a son, a 2-year-old son. If your son, from what you know today, what would you tell your son if he was wanting to enter, or someone was wanting to enter, the younger you, about, being a trial lawyer that you know now that you didn't know then?
Yeah, I think
What advice would you give?
number one, you got to work hard. And the biggest thing is preparation. There's so much preparation that goes into a trial, because when I'm preparing for a trial, I'm thinking like this. I'm thinking like, all right, if I do A, number one, what are they going to do? And if they do B, well, then what I need to do C. And if I do C and they do D, well, then what am I going to do with E, F, and G? And I think you have to think so many steps ahead and be prepared for so many different scenarios. And also to never, ever, ever, ever underestimate your opposing counsel. Because if you think, oh, they're not going to catch this, or they're not going to see this, or they're not going to find this piece of evidence, no. They will. And you always need to be prepared for it. So I would say, don't be overconfident in your cases and never underestimate the other side.
That's beautifully well said. I'm going to quote you here. I mean, that's a strong type of mentorship. You talk about mentorship can have a lasting impact on a child's life. And I'm grateful to play even a small role in that journey. I think that's the fact that you think about the youth and impact. Now, you said that you had a lot of the cases you have, it involved young people. Would you say there was a lot of young people that were involved in the gang life and things of that nature? Is that what kind of led you to, wanting to be in that path and set a path correct for your son and your children?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And being a part of the gang violence unit in Jacksonville, Florida, you see the younger individuals and the youth who don't have a strong, positive male or female influence in their life, depending on the situation. They don't have role models to look up to, and it completely affects their path and what happens with them. Because when they don't have a mentor or role model to look up to, they tend to look up to the wrong people, and they tend to get involved in the wrong crowd. So your quote, I know, is from a post from, I'm part of the Big Brother, Big Sister program. I have a little brother that I mentor, and it's such a good experience. Unfortunately, he doesn't, have a positive male influence in his life. And I think it's so important for kids to see, hey, if he can be successful, I can be successful. If he can do this, I can do this. If they don't see it, they may not believe it. So just setting that example so someone can see. And it's the same thing in sports. It's the same thing in, I'll give you an example in sports. Let's say someone is told that after practice, they have to run 1,500-yard sprints. And in their head, they're like, I can't do that. That's a crazy amount. And then I go out there and I run 1,100-yard sprints. And I'm dead at the end, but I do it. All of a sudden their mind changes and they say, you know what? If he can do it, I can probably do it. And it completely flips their mindset and their positive thinking. And so what I really try with my little brother in the Big Brother, Big Sister program and my own son is to lead by example. Words are one thing, but actions matter the most. And so I really try to lead by example, and I try to show them, hey, anything's possible. You just have to put your mind to it and work towards it and believe you can, and you absolutely will.
I mean, that's so well said. Being a father myself, and my son, I remember when he was 2, and now he's 23 years old. And
wow,
the action part is what speaks. I had a job in England where I was teaching theater, but I was coaching like rugby and soccer, and we'd get up in the early morning and have to do sprints. When I say early morning, I'm talking 5:30 a.m., man.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
I had to take kids out that were either caught trying to sneak drinks in. It was a preparatory school, or smoking, and I would have to take them out and run. I'm like, it's early. I went running myself with these kids until I pulled a hammy.
They need to see it. They need to see it.
They have to see it being done, and that's the first part of mentorship and being a father or being a leader, is being able to put action first, because words, get stronger with the action.
Right. Yeah.
I
Actions speak louder than words.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing I liked about your company, what made you come up with you played on words, the fewer the better. I mean, it's just you're a genius, man.
So it's actually something that my family had since high school. And during some of my games, my aunt and uncle used to come with a big sign that said the fewer the better. And it always stuck with me. And then when I opened up my own firm, that's my trademark. And that is officially a trademark by the U.S. Patent Office.
Wow.
So don't be stealing that.
No, I'm not. Man, I respect it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I'm gonna go to movies right now. Law movies. Favorite law movie?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I can. I'll tell you a couple of my favorite law shows is Suits. Suits is a great one, even though it's extremely unrealistic. One of my top favorite law movies is The Devil's Advocate, for sure, with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
But no, I was more into legal shows. Franklin and Bash, Suits is a big one, even though, again, it's very unrealistic. Harvey gets a case, he goes to court the next day, and a week later, trial is set. Trials don't happen for 3, 4, 5 years, but those are always interesting to watch. And I'd watch with my wife, and I'd be like, that's not how this works, and that's not how this works, and that's not how this works. But they're always fun to see, and it's funny because those kinds of things we actually have to address in jury selection. Right. So as a prosecutor, I'd always be like, hey, look, who watches Law and Order here? And in Law and Order, they have this cool thing where they spray a mist in the air, and people's fingerprints pop up, and their odor pops up in the air, and they can then. And I'm like, hey, that's not how it really works. Understand that the people on that show are actors and actresses, and they're buttoned up really nicely, and that this is real life, and you're going to hear from real people and real testimony and things like that. So we do kind of have to address that during jury selection of hey, what you see on TV isn't exactly like what you see in a courtroom.
Right. Best cross-examination you ever witnessed? Real cross-examination.
One of the best cross-examinations. That's a really good question. There was an attorney in one of the previous offices I worked with who we'll say he was a top 3, top 5 trial attorney in the firm, and the firm had 1,000 attorneys. And we tried a slip and fall case together. And the way he crossed the manager over every tiny little detail of what they did wrong and in such a natural flow was so impressive. Because in that, if somewhere else or even myself were to do that cross-examination, I may have gone through 10 or 20 things that he did wrong. He would essentially break down those 20 things into sub elements of each. So number 1 would have A, B, and C attached to it. And number 2 would have A, B, C, and D attached to it. So he would expand those 10 to 20 questions into 60 and just nail it each step of the way. And that was a learning experience for me of, hey, break these questions and things down even simpler, make it really easy for the jury to follow and go through every tiny little detail of what they did wrong. That really stuck out to me.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. One book every young attorney should read.
Number 1, the Book of Evidence. I think if an attorney wants to be, especially a great trial attorney, they need to read evidence and know evidence back and forth. And maybe that's a boring answer, but that's one of the best answers I can give, because if you have evidence locked down, it doesn't matter if you're a criminal attorney or a civil attorney. It's an incredibly important thing to know. Also, a non sort of law related book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that can apply to any profession, not just being a lawyer, and make you more effective and efficient in what you do.
Good answer. That's a good answer. I like that. Coffee or energy drink?
Coffee, no question. Not even close. I'm not an energy drink person. Small fun fact about me: I've never had like a full soda in my life. I don't like the carbonation. Wow. Yeah, so I have had sips of soda. I've had it maybe in a mixed drink a couple times in college, but I don't like soda. I don't like carbonation. So not energy drinks. I'm a coffee guy.
Okay. One legal myth that the public believes.
One legal myth that the public believes is that there is a significant amount of fraud in the personal injury world. That is a complete myth. It is a very, very, very tiny percentage, and the very, 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 very high majority of people are legitimately injured in these cases.
Okay. Your biggest goals that you want to accomplish over the next 10 years. Where do you see Aaron Feuer in the next 10 years?
I see myself and my firm absolutely growing to a point where I probably have a couple of attorneys under me. I can take a step back from, we'll say, having my hands in everything, and I can be more involved in sort of the bigger cases, but more involved with the clients specifically in bringing in more cases and things of that nature, and trying a good deal of cases, and ultimately representing the people of Florida to the best of my ability, and showing my son what hard work looks like, and setting an example for him, and making sure my family, my wife, my son all have a successful and happy life.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. In everything that you've done in the law world, you've seen it from all aspects. So I kind of call it you have a 3D vision of everything. You know how insurance companies think. You know how the plaintiffs are thinking. You know about how the opposite attorneys are thinking. Being in that world, how do you use that right now in terms of pushing the Aaron Feuer law firm forward? How many cases are you doing right now? How do people find out about you?
Yeah, so my practice has been grown organically, meaning like I haven't really done a lot of typical marketing or paid advertising or anything of that nature. What has been successful for me, especially in the beginning, was I was going out doing a lot of networking events, meeting people, meeting other attorneys and things like that. And I think I'm a very personable person. I'm very social. And so I like to think I make a good first impression. And then at the same time, I possess a level of litigation experience that not a large amount of attorneys have. So there's a significant amount of attorneys who don't try cases at all. They only handle cases in what I'll call pre-litigation, and they refer out all of their litigation to someone else. There's older attorneys who just don't really want to litigate anymore, or they don't want to litigate what I'll call more difficult cases where maybe liability is in dispute or the injuries aren't overly serious and they don't want to litigate something small. And I've gotten a lot of referrals from those types of attorneys and those people. And then what happens is, whether it's a big case or small case, I get great results and I treat the clients very, very well. So the client goes back to that attorney and they say, Mr. Smith, thank you so much for linking me with Aaron Feuer. He did such a great job for me, and it was a great result. And then I get to tell the attorney what we resolved the case for. And for example, I took over a case from one attorney who was advocating for his clients to resolve for about $70,000 to $75,000. I took over the case. I saw it as a much bigger case, and we ultimately resolved for about $185,000. When he learned about the result, he was quite impressed with what I did and what he thought was a difficult case. And now he sends me other cases. And that's typically what happens from other attorneys as well, is I've taken very challenging and difficult cases and I've given them great results. And I am also on the very high end of client communication and how I communicate with my clients, meaning I'm very communicative, which not a lot of attorneys are. Every client has my cell phone, every single one. They text me, they call me, I respond immediately as soon as I can to all of them. And what I also do is I keep them very informed throughout the case. And I consider myself an optimistic realist. I keep it real with them. I try to lean towards the optimistic side of like, hey, this is bad, but this is what we're going to do about it. But they're aware of the challenges in their case from the very beginning. So when that comes up in the later portions of the case, and I have to say, look, this is why they're offering this amount. We talked about this in the beginning. It was always going to be a fight. It's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to deal with at trial. It's another hurdle. This is what I recommend, and this is what I think we should do. And then 99% of the time they follow my advice because they've been comfortable with me from the start, because I've kept them informed, because they know what's going on in their cases. Too often in the bigger firms where a attorney has 100, 200, 300 cases, they only have so much time in a day, and they can only talk to so many clients in a day. And so too many clients are left wondering what's going on with my case. If one of my clients is wondering what's going on with my case, Raje, you know what they do? They text me.
What do
they call me. They call me, and I pick up and I say, hey, here's the update. Here's what's going on. And they say, thank you. And that's if I don't communicate with them first, but they have direct access to me at all times, which a very large portion of attorneys can't say that.
And your firm has been up how long?
Just over 3 years.
3 years. That's solid, man. Yeah, I think that you have, just listening to you right now from, over at Loudr Media, who runs the Loudr Lawyer Network that we're dealing with, they help attorneys grow, as I stated in the opening. And you're at that part. You're a confident young attorney. I'm gonna still say young attorney. I'm 61.
That's okay. I'll take it.
So you're still young. You're still,
sure.
Respect, and you can learn a lot from the youth, and what you shared in your journey and what you've had to see, and the way that you handle people. You take the human side of things, and that's the most important, is seeing everyone as a human being, like being able to walk in their shoes. What would I want someone to help me with if I was in this situation? And I think that your actions, I've been listening, your actions speak volumes in that. So
I appreciate it. That's very humbling words. I and what I preach to other attorneys too, and even in trial, is you got to be yourself, and you have to be genuine. And people feel that, and people read that, and people understand that. And when you are genuine, it opens up people more, and it adds credibility to yourself. So when I'm in trial and I'm talking to a jury, I admit the bad things. I talk about the good things. I certainly advocate for my client strenuously, but I keep it real. I say man, I say dude sometimes, because that's me. That's who I am, and I never lose that. Yeah, I never lose that, because that's who I am. When I talk to people, even when I talk to my clients, like, sure, am I a little more formal? Yes, but I talk to them like a normal person, and I keep it real with them, for lack of a better term. And I think that's extremely important in my industry. Too many attorneys are like robots, or like they try to be something they're not. You gotta just be you.
Absolutely. That's well said. That right there, that's a marketing moment right there. That's real, that you speak on. Painting the picture and telling the story about oneself. You have to be able to look inside. There are too many attorneys that paint pictures that aren't real.
Right.
And
I see it from people I know on social media, the person they portray, or the type of attorney they portray. And I'm just like, I feel bad for these clients, because that's not who they are, and that's not the attorney they're getting. So it's absolutely true.
Wow. Well said. When you hear the term Loudr Lawyer, what does Loudr Lawyer mean to you?
Sure. So, I think off the bat, you hear Loudr Lawyer and you think, oh, an attorney who's loud. But I don't think it's that type of thing. I think a Loudr Lawyer is someone who's a herd above others, not because of the volume of their voice, but the content of what they speak and the actions that they take. So I think a Loudr Lawyer is someone who actually separates themselves from other lawyers, either through how they practice, what they're good at, how they interact with others, how they communicate with clients, things like that.
Well said. So, Aaron, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can call me directly, 786-953-1499. My website, AaronFewerLaw.com. That's AARON, F as in Frank, EUER law.com. And I am accessible, reachable, and I'm ready for help. And Raje, what I always tell people as well, whether it's personal injury or whatever, call me. If I can't help you, I will find someone who will.
Hey, that's well said. The fewer, the better. Aaron Feuer, thank you for being here, man. Did I say that right?
Absolutely, Raje. Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So hold on while I end us and talk to you in a minute.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. If you're enjoying the conversation, let us know. Give us a like and subscribe to never miss a thing. We'll see you next time right here on the Loudr Lawyer Network.